You're on a transit corridor, so that folks who don't have access to cars or choose not to have cars have an opportunity to have transportation is one of the things we need to do. The question also asked about homelessness. We've had a work session on that today. We need to figure out how do we get more units in place for our neighbors who are experiencing some challenges. But in addition, how do we provide wraparound services for the folks who are experiencing homelessness and have other issues? Because the sheltering is a part of the issue, but some of the other challenges that they're experiencing may be a barrier to them actually accessing the shelter. So we've got to work with our partners in the county to figure out how do we bring more shelter as well as more services to our homeless community to get folks off the street.
Thank you. I think the key is going to be expecting everybody to get in on the work of getting affordability everywhere. We've missed some opportunities when we are redeveloping or building. If you're building 10 or more units, the city should be consistently, council and staff, consistently looking for the affordable units. And they've got to be something below 80%. I don't know if we're talking about 50 or 60%. But that goal could be pursued very vigorously with the support of staff and the support of people in the community. You've got to get all of the players involved, the investors, the builders, the citizens, and we can find a way to fit in affordability. Thank you.
I'll try not to repeat some of what you've heard, but this is an issue affecting cities across the country, certainly affecting Raleigh pretty greatly. And I think there's two ways forward. We have to increase supply and we have to increase housing types across the city. That'll help with one part of the problem. The example you gave, though, folks who are at the very low end, they need subsidy. They need help and assistance. And so that's the subsidy piece. So it's supply and subsidy, it's both. On the subsidy side, I think it's a spectrum. You've got folks who have housing that are at risk of losing it. We need to do more to make sure they can stay in their homes. We've got the owner-occupied rehabilitation assistance. We've got some tax assistance. Then you've got folks who need an affordable rental, increasing the subsidy there, making sure it's near services. We've got some city-owned land that's vacant that we're moving into production for 30% AMI rental. And then we've got folks that want to be able to build generational wealth through home ownership. And we need to be putting money into the first-time home buyer assistance program. And all of that is being worked on. We have the affordable housing bond that passed in 2020. That money is rolling in. And we do have a 1-cent sales tax that generates about $8 million a year as well.
We need equity in pay. I've been working with a group for a few years that were trying to get $15 an hour. They have not succeeded. Many of the people that we're rude to in the restaurants, they still make $7.25 an hour. How can they afford a decent place to live, to rent or purchase a house if they're not getting a decent salary? We need to step it up. Housing, again, I think we can turn it around. I have some ideas. I've been going to housing seminars and all this stuff for quite a few years. I see what other states and other cities are doing. We need to take back control of the housing development here in the city of Raleigh. We have all the cards in our hands as citizens, and we need to make sure that the council and the developers understand what we want and meet our demands. Thank you.
You have to understand how it works to begin with. Is it working?
You got to press that button to keep the light on.
There we go. Okay, a little better. And the way it works, or the numbers and the things that we look at in the city, comes from the ACS. It's American Something Services. I know that's where we get our numbers from. That's where when you see when Livable Raleigh puts out the 4,000 that are gone away, that's where those numbers come from. And we need to understand that. I do know, and I hate to recognize some of the councils that are there today, but they are going in the right direction in one way, and I agree with this 100%. There's a project on Newman Avenue that we own the land, and we're going to maintain that. What happens is once we help developers build and they get their 10 years in and make their money, it turns into market rate. And once it turns into market rate, it doesn't work. But if we control the property, we can control the market, how that happens, and that has not happened in the past This is the first one that I know of, so I commend the councils that are there to make that happen. And that's a way to make it move forward.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. I know that housing is near and dear to all of our hearts. I personally benefited from the first-time homebuyer program when I was juggling nonprofit positions and figuring out if I could buy a house. But I know we have a lot more to go. So another question involving housing. What is your plan for assisting long-term residents of Overland Village who are experiencing skyrocketing increases in their property taxes due to gentrification? For those of you who don't know about Overland Village, it is a historic neighborhood here in Raleigh that's been around for a very, very long time and near and dear to the Black community. Do you think that a program providing real estate tax relief for long-term city residents who can no longer afford to pay property taxes is appropriate? So I'm going to actually start with Mr. Odom for this question. We'll flip-flop.
Well, if you say it won't be fair. Okay, all right, that's a little better.
We'll start your time now. It's all right.
I'm interested in the subject because I thought about this before, is that, okay, if you've been in a house for a long time, but you also benefit from the equity you build in that house. But I'm not against entertaining conversation about how someone who has lived there for 30 or 40 years, that they can get tax relief. But however, when they do sell the house, I think they ought to be able to have to pay that back. So I am for what has been proposed, but with some clarification of how that happens and how that works. So I don't want them to just give them the benefit of the doubt that others don't have. So if they pay it back in the end when they sell the house and make their money, I'm on board with that.
Mr. Shep.
Yes, I agree that we need to provide assistance for people that have been in their homes for over a number of years. I've lived in my home for 44 years, and in the next 3 years, if something would happen to me and I would not be able to maintain my home, pay the taxes and all of that, I would want some assistance. I would not want to end up on the street. So yes, we need to get something in place to help not only that part of town, but all the other parts of Raleigh where gentrification has been going on and is continuing to go on. We should be ashamed of ourselves for allowing these things to happen. What is happening to the elderly who can't pay their taxes? Many of them don't know about the programs that are downtown. Many of them don't know that there's money to help rebuild or work on their house. So we need to do more educating our voters, and also in that fund to help repair your home, we should make sure that it doesn't run out of money when a citizen has applied and received that grant. I know people that's happened to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I would support that program. This was sort of what I was talking about in my prior answer, but I was talking really fast because of this time situation. But we have folks, we need to build housing for folks who need it, but we've got folks who have homes now that are at risk of losing it. And so it becomes this circular compounding problem. There are programs the county maintains for this sort of tax relief. They are limited in their scope and not everybody applies. And we can do more. And I will say the unpopular thing, but it's the honest thing, we need help from the state government because it is not something that a city or county can do that by themselves. And so we need a coalition of towns and cities working with the county to ask the legislator for a fix. We don't always get what we ask for. We ask for some oversight authority for our police advisory board. That did not go anywhere, but I am certain that if we all leave this room together, we talk to our legislators and we get the right folks elected, we can make it happen, and I'm certainly supportive of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have consensus. I think that if people to repay back the taxes when it's time to sell their house at that increment of advanced value ought to go back into affordability of housing.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ford?
I try not to turn it off. I agree with all of the answers, with the exception of having to pay back the money once you sell the property. But certainly, I think, as Councilmember Melton alluded to, one of the challenges, I mean, because we've been asked this question several times and we've looked into it. And not only have we looked into it on the city side, but the folks at the county have looked into it as well.
Thank you. I think we got to talk about transportation, because it's not just about transit. Unfortunately, in the past, we grew as a very car-dependent society. So you can't just talk about transit individually. If you go on my opponent's website, she talks only about transit, and she talks about light rail. Well, unfortunately, light rail was not in the Wake County transit plan that was approved by all of you. So that's not even on the table for the near future. What is on the table is what we're working on is the BRT lines. There are 4 of them, and we've started on all of them in different stages. So that's exciting. The BRTs act like light rail, but they're bus rapid transit, as we all know, but they are going to be great for the city. We got to get behind them and keep those moving. I also have been very focused on public safety in terms of transit and transportation. I'm leading on trying to get more sidewalks in neighborhoods and reducing the speed of traffic in neighborhoods. So all that works together in terms of transportation and transit. Thank you.
Go ahead. Thank you so much. So yes, we have BRT, and I think it's a great piece to the puzzle. But right now, we have bus workers who are threatening to go on strike. So to design an entire plan around a transit system that you can't staff, I think is something that we have to continue the discussions on. I think, of course, we are legislators to help come up with new plans. How do we add? I'm not looking in 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line for light rail. How do we look to the future beyond bus rapid transit? Because that can't be the only piece to the puzzle. We have to begin connecting different items, and why not in District E? We have a one road shot from downtown Durham to downtown Raleigh. We have the airport right there. Why would we not try and think innovatively to move people to where they need to be across the city and be a leader in the city? That's what I want to do. I want to bring new ideas and make the ones that we have stronger. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll start with Christina and go back to David. Another transit question. Would you continue to support and advance the 10-year bike rally plan that was approved in 2016 for bike accessibility? Do you still see the bike rally plan as a 10-year priority, as in, do you see all of the priorities in the plan to conclude by 2026?
So I sat on BPAC, so that's the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission, in my work on the Parks Board, and I do support our bike path system. I know that we are also working to connect to, Chapel Hill. You know, all of these different plans are fantastic. Do I think that they're going to happen by 2024? No, I don't. In just discussions on how this is the detail that has to go into all of these plans, I think it's ambitious, and I want to get there by 2024, but I don't think we are. But I would want to have those conversations to make sure that we had a clear plan and a transparent process for residents to understand when that would be coming to our area. But yes, I'm in full support.
Yes, I'm in full support as well. I think we need to continue to increase funding for bikeways, bike paths, or greenways, which will be part of the parks bond, will help with this too. So it has to become, and we want it to become safer, and more people doing it to take more cars off the street to relieve traffic congestion. And it will be great when we have the BRTs, more sidewalks, slower traffic, and the commuter rail going that the City Council is fully in support of, to have this multi-layered approach to transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is regarding community engagement, and we'll start with David. How will you ensure that the citizens living in the extraterritorial jurisdiction, or ETJ, not subject to Raleigh zoning and building regulations, are also considered in your decisions?
It's a very specific question. So let me start with this. This City Council has created the most robust community engagement program and plan ever before the City Council. We can sit here and have a side conversation about CACs, but they were disbanded. They're no longer formally or informally part of the process, like it or not. So what we have done to try to move quickly, it hasn't happened as fast as we all wanted to, but let's give everybody some grace. It was a pandemic going on. But we went through another long public engagement on community engagement. created the first Office of Community Engagement, hired the first Director of Community Engagement, created the first Board of Community Engagement. That is being inclusive so that all the citizens of Raleigh have an opportunity, not just the elite who can go to, and I'm just talking about the CACs in my district, in my side of town. I'm not talking about any others, because I've been to the CACs in my side of town back before they were disbanded. And so that was never going to get us to full community engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
Can you repeat the question for me?
Sure. How will you ensure that the citizens living in the extraterritorial jurisdiction, or ETJ, not subject to Raleigh zoning and building regulations, are also considered in your decisions?
I would reinstate the CACs. By reinstating something that is CAC-like, we include everyone that lives within that district. That's what we did as CACs. Everyone was able to come. There was a day and time each month that met, and you could choose to come or you could choose not to. The point was that residents were gathering to then transition that information to council. That's what we have. What we have now, and I'm not knocking it, I sat on those commissions. So I was on the community engagement task force that they created. It was a sham, I want to tell you. It was a way to push a narrative that the chair of that or the consultant wanted, and we didn't have any discussion of it. But when I brought that to council, no one wanted to talk to me. So what we have now, I was on the hiring panel to hire Taisha Hinton. We had 6 candidates. She was the best and the most qualified, and I am so excited to work with her. Yes, we have a community engagement board now, and I want to work with them. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are now going to talk about the environment, and Christina, you will start. How do you propose to divert trash from public spaces, events, and the new social district? Should Raleigh be moving from single garbage cans to dual or triple stream waste solutions, like other municipalities, to reduce adding to landfills?
Yes, I support moving to a triple compost, recycle, and trash. I think that making those available, especially at city events, which we currently do. I mean, the Parks Department does bring that out there, but not the triple stream. And I would definitely support continuing that and making sure that our environmental concerns at all city events, at all city projects are available for everyone to utilize. Thank you.
I'll start with a kind of funny one. At the at-large forum, they were talking about this, and they all had plastic bottles in front of them, and one was talking about single-use plastic, and they all looked down and they're like, oh. So it is an issue, obviously, right? Plastics being the biggest part of it. I fully support what our solid waste department has been doing. They've had a tough time, just like a lot of us, during COVID in terms of being able to get out there and do the job that they were paid to do. But they are frontline workers too, and they did an incredible job. So fully support what they're moving to. Compost is one of the things they're looking at to make that maybe not a requirement, but make it easier. We've got to continue, and we've done that with the new cans that are going out there, trying to and giving more time for you to put out your trash as well as your yard waste as well as your recyclables. So we're working on it, but it is a international issue that we need to be a part of finding a solution. Thank you.
Thanks to both of you. Okay, we're going to start on a question about climate environmental justice, and we'll start with David. What role do you feel Raleigh can play in addressing plastic pollution? How do you feel about a plastic fee or ban?
I am supportive of having a public process to talk about this and see what the public is really willing and ready to do. All of this costs money, certainly up front, but yes, most of us all do this at home, but how much can we control other people to do it? I think we should do what we can to decrease the flow of all things that can be trash and recycled. So yes, I support the notion, the concept, and to go through a public process to do it. I'm trying to remember the rest of your question, but I think I covered it enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina?
Will you repeat it? I'm
Sure.
sorry.
What role do you feel Raleigh can play in addressing plastic pollution? How do you feel about a plastic fee or ban?
I'm against a plastic fee because I think that would affect those most needed who can't afford that. So I don't think that a plastic fee is in order. I do want to work with the community to come up with different solutions onto how we reduce that. I'm not sure right now exactly the programs that I would instate or want to bring to the table, but I think conversations with organizations like Zero Waste would help me understand the issue a little bit more so that we can come to the table and bring solutions that would impact our environment.
Thank you. And a climate question with transit, and we'll start with Christina. Vehicle trips of 3 miles or less make up the largest amount of emissions in our city. Quite literally, it is the quick runs to the store for milk or dropping off the kids at school that contribute the most to climate change. If elected, how will you propose we reduce carbon emissions to address this issue specifically?
I don't know that I was aware that the city could reduce the car trips and carbon emissions, so I am not sure how to stop that. I think that I think that we have the city that's set up like this that unfortunately that is a really, really bad thing to have happen, where you have the carbon emissions when you're going to such short trips. And I want to work with the community to figure out what we could do, because right now I'm not sure exactly how to stop that. We are working towards making things, areas of the city more walker friendly. We are looking at places like North Hills or other places that you can put all these businesses together so that the trips are reduced and you can walk from place to place. I used to live in North Hills, so I know that that is an area which is succeeding in that. And how can we create more of that? You know, I don't know if we can stop what's already created where people are having to drive from their home across the street, but if we can create more spaces in our community that allow for that, that would be beneficial for our climate. Thank you.
Thanks. I want to step back, go to a higher level. These are very narrow questions within climate. This council will approve the first CCAP ever, which is the Community Climate Action Plan. So we now have a goal of carbon reduction for the first time in Raleigh. That plan is moving forward. I'm very supportive of it. Does it go as far as I would like it to? No. Is our goal as low as I would like it to? No. But it is now something, it is comprehensive. It is, we're getting ready to have our first annual report on that so we can sort of measure it a little bit better, and I think that's going to be great. But the city has been looking at this. We have an office that focuses on sustainability and resilience, and I have worked in this area my whole career and very supportive of this notion. As I said on my website, I want to make Raleigh the most solar-friendly city in the country, and solar is a big part of us reducing our carbon emissions, and I think we are going to do more on that, and I'm going to be leading the way to make us the most solar-friendly city in the nation. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is our final question before we go to audience questions. And we'll start with David. What is your vision for growth in District E over the next 5, 10, or 20 years?
Well, again, it's through a public process that we look at comprehensively how do we want to grow. So most people realize we can't, as a city, control private property. We can't control everything that happens on private property. We obviously do have overlays, zoning laws, but every piece of property in Raleigh can be developed in some way unless it's public property. So the question is, what fits? What's the best thing for that area? I think it should be more of the experts and the stakeholders working on this, and less of the politicians involved in it and making political decisions. That's what I would like to move us forward. I have been frustrated that we don't have as much information when we have to make rezoning cases or approve rezoning cases, and I think that's something I'm going to work on, is things like planned developments, where they have to come to us with much more detail on what they're going to do with their property before we approve it. And so I will continue to work with all of you and the stakeholders to improve that process. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So what do I want District E in the next 5, 10, 20 years? I am looking down the road and I want something that brings people to the district. I want areas that teachers and firefighters and policemen can come to live and want to be a part of. I want to work with developers. I want to work with the community to say, how do we revitalize Pleasant Valley, you know, above where the Dick's Sporting Goods or where the Walmart is? How do we reimagine this to do something similar to a North Hills, but in an area that's already planned there, that's already on a transit line, that's ready for that development? I would love to have those conversations. I want more people to move to District E because we have so many amazing things to offer. It's amazing to be able to go in 10 minutes to Umstead Park and take another turn to go to the Art Museum 10 minutes away. I want more people to experience that, and I want to work with the community to see how we make that happen.
Great, thank you. And now I have audience questions. We're going to start with Christina. How do you view community groups like CACs that operate independently, and how do you plan to enhance community engagement with the citizens you serve?
I love CACs. I love what we stood for and what we're going to be in the future because we're still here. We haven't gone anywhere. I do understand that it is not inclusive of all the groups. There are so many different organizations that we speak to as CACs, that the city speaks to, and I think that we, as we've always been, are a piece to the puzzle. We are the connection between those community groups and council, and I think allowing and really uplifting the voices of the residents who want to be involved, those residents who are there spending their time learning with us. I want them to have that voice. I want to be there to make sure that these engagement, all this time that they say, oh, we have public engagement, we had a years-long public engagement, most of us are like, what, we did? We did, so you can say, and you can check the box, and you can say we held a meeting, but how many people went? How many people were there? And that's what I want to use the metrics for. I want to use that and say, we had 10 people at this meeting, but next time we're going to shoot for 20, and just keep going. It's not going to be solved in one term, and I want to be there to help fix it.
Thank you. I fully support the city's robust, inclusive, diverse, equitable community engagement program that we have created and are going to continue to move forward, including the director who's working with everybody, the board, and we're also getting ready to implement what's called community connectors. These are people from the community that are going to that live there, and they are going to be working in terms of relating and working between the city and the residents of that area. We're going out to the people. We're not waiting for some specific special group to come to us. We're going out to the people, and that's important. The CACs were self-selected, exclusive, never elected by anybody like we were, and they were making decisions on people's property rights. Let me tell you an anecdote after we get over a beer of what I saw one time. It wasn't right, and it had to end. I'm sorry it was personal to her, but we had to move to a better way of doing things with community engagement, and we have. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've got another question on community engagement, so we're going to keep the topic going. And we'll start with David. What do you feel are acceptable forms of community engagement, and how would you like to be held accountable?
So the COVID pandemic existed during most of my term. I held listening sessions, virtual listening sessions. I did emailing summaries of the work that we had done. I tried to just put out positive things on social media and not get caught up in all of the negativity that's out there. So I tried personally as a counselor to be as engaged as possible. Obviously now, as we come out of it, I love having these type of opportunities because I like to be in person. I'm an in-person kind of guy, so I miss that, especially that I just gotten on council. So I support all forms of community engagement that include everybody, that give everybody an opportunity to be part of it. And that's what this program that has been put in place with the City of Raleigh is attempting to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Christina.
Community engagement is my lifeline. It's my lifeblood. And the way that we where we were, and we had 18 different units of CACs with a lot of different leadership teams to do that work, to outreach to the community, we now have 16 connectors, and we have 16 board members. We have cut that voice down dramatically. Those voices that had all of the institutional knowledge of what was going on. We had chairs who were in planning commission, who are all parts of the city. And what I would work to is to have something very similar. We have the board and we have the connectors, and all of those are pieces to the puzzle to where we can make this version of community engagement explode, and we can include more and more people, because yes, that is something that we as CAC struggled with, but it was because we went to council and asked for help. We asked them to use the communications department to help get our message out there, and they refused the last term, not this term. They refused us. And so when we came here, we just want to be heard. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will start with Christina, and it's, I don't know, it's many topics. The question is, how would you pay for your ideas?
All my ideas, how would I? I've got a lot of them. It's a great question. I think in my first initiative, which would be to reinstate CACs, let's start there. Right now, we're spending more than we did on CACs. CACs, we'd spend a total of $33,000, and now we're spending over $300,000 on that. So I think there's room in there to cut to make sure that what a semblance of what we had is still available. Other ideas, there are a multitude of ways. I mean, we have a $1 billion budget. We have a $1 billion budget, and this budget allowed $1.5 million to go to a community trust. So I want to tap into some of those funds to help us with those initiatives. And it would be a really great conversation with council and budget to see how we can implement all of the other ideas that we will come up with as a group to make sure they're funded and don't go above city spending. Thank you.
I think it's really easy to be idealistic when you're an activist and you're focused on one thing. It's a whole nother thing when you've got to work on everything that comes before the city and create a budget and figure out how to do it. It's a whole nother thing. And I fortunately have worked in government most of my career on the other side, not as an elected official, but I was able to get it, but it's not easy. But you can't focus on one thing. You've got to be able to deal in all the different pieces, important pieces of the lives of everybody in Raleigh, and be able to discern what is important, have priorities, and deal with those. And also, you got to compromise. This is not an ideal type of work, and you've got to support your staff. They are the ones driving this, as they should be, and I am very supportive of our upper staff and all the departments that we have on city council. They are the ones that come to us. They're the experts, and I'm going to do all I can to support them through tax increases if need be, hopefully not. A lot of employees did get raises because of the tax increase, and that's what we hope for, but also we have to learn to be as an efficient and work with the public as much as possible, and I think we have done so. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will start with David with the next question. Current construction costs and the development standards set by the city make it impossible to build anything that is affordable to anyone making less than 80% AMI without subsidies. Turn it over. How would you work with developers to understand which policies drive costs the most and work to change those policies to create natural, affordable housing without subsidies?
The first part of that, I'm not sure is true, but maybe this person is an expert on that. That's a hard line, they call it. I'm not sure that's true. But one of the things I've been working with and on is trying to figure out how to relieve our permitting process somewhat. Now again, this is both nonprofit and for-profit developers. Now remember, a lot of for-profit developers work in the affordable housing arena. So it's not something that we could do you can't do that on the cheap. You still got to build things. You still got to compete for property. And that's something that under the affordable housing bond that this city has taken on. Go look at our plan under, I think it's 5 buckets of how we're partnering with other agencies, nonprofits like you all out here who put this on, to try to do this. Y'all are the experts in a lot of this work. We can't do it all ourselves, but it all costs money, and the taxpayers got to realize that. Thank you.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Please do, thank you.
Current construction costs and the development standards set by the city make it impossible to build anything that is affordable to anyone making less than 80% AMI without subsidies. How would you work with developers to understand which policies drive costs the most and work to change those policies to create natural, affordable housing without subsidies?
I think that it all starts with that conversation. And in this, I don't want to just exclude anyone, and that means developers too. So I want to have that understanding and have those discussions so that I can help come up with a policy that would help lower that cost, because that's definitely something we hear. We hear in all the rezonings that we meet with lawyers and we meet with developers, that's the problem is we can't afford to build the affordable housing that you want us to have. It's difficult, and I am looking forward to learning how those costs all work together. When I met with the HBA, that was a very enlightening part of our conversation for me to understand that I need to work with them so that I can see where things may cost too much money for a developer. So with that, through that conversation and with outreach to the community and other experts and stakeholders, I hope that we can come to a solution that's better than what we have currently.
Thank you. The next question, and we'll start with Christina. The biggest parks bond in North Carolina history is on the ballot. Are you for or against the bond, and do you think it does enough for District E?
I sat on the Parks Board for 2 years. I sat and was on the tail end of the bond discussion to where we were able to send to council in March of 2021 the list of bonds, the list of programs and projects that we wanted funded in this bond. We gave them a $100, $200, and $300 million option. I voted yes for that. I voted yes because I think it did help with equity concerns through parks and all the parks that we have around the system. At that point, we weren't allowed to talk about Dix. Dix was not part of the conversation, and it took until May of 2022 for us to find out what the final bond package would be. I asked repeatedly while being on the Parks Board, let's talk with council. What's going on? What's happening? I had our liaison there twice, and there wasn't any understanding of where Dix was going to be, how far, how much it was going to be. And then in May of 2022, they came out with the final proposal, and I was against it because of the addition to Dix. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Jones. I appointed Ms. Jones to the Parks Board, and then she said negative things about our funding for the Parks Board, which was unfortunate, I think. I am 110% behind the Parks bond. It is going to be the largest ever, and with the way that we are growing, it is totally necessary to do this with all that it provides, all the equity issues it provides, all the recreation issues it provides, all the physical and mental health help that it gives to all of our society. We all learned this through with the COVID pandemic. Everybody wanted to be outside. Everybody wanted to be able to see each other in a natural space. This Parks Board is going to allow us to do that. Dix Park could be a world-class park for this city, and I'm fully supportive of Dix Park. It's actually not that large of the percentage of the total bond, relatively speaking. Equity is what we use to come up with what the projects were going to be. In District E, we're going to be working on greenway additions and access, which I think is very important to District E. So I am 100% behind the Parks bond and Dix Park. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, we'll start with David and then Christina. The past few years have been really challenging for law enforcement, particularly in light of some horrific acts of police brutality. How do you personally strike the balance between supporting calls for defunding the police with those who feel we aren't spending enough on public safety?
I think you used the term horrific acts of police brutality. That did not occur here, so I hope nobody thinks that they're talking about locally. So that did not occur here. I'm not sure what they're talking about, but I mean, I'm talking about local, our police department. And I fully support, we hired the new police chief. Go meet her, talk to her, she's awesome, and she is leading us in the right direction. We have a police oversight board that's a citizen-led oversight board, which is awesome. I fully stand with our police and our first responders. As I said earlier, I voted to give them higher raises than they got. I am endorsed by the Police Association here in Raleigh. My opponent here is aligned with Refund Raleigh, which is a local version of defund the police. I think that's totally wrong. I've spoken about it publicly at city council meetings. I am against that, and it is bad for Raleigh and is bad for our police. Thank you.
Christina, go ahead.
That's a lot. The police department, I feel, is severely undervalued by this council by not giving them what they earn, what they should be paid. With that said, there are issues that the police department has. We have had horrific accidents. We have had horrific incidences. They weren't accidents. And we have to address those. You can't pretend they don't exist. We have real problems that we have to sit down, and I love Chief Patterson as well, and I think she's ready to have that conversation with us, and we want to sit down at the same table. The Police Advisory Board, as I speak to members of it, they're upset because they don't have any oversight power. So they have a discussion, they can have a talk with Jonathan Melton, but that's their liaison, but that's it. They don't feel like they have any power or any say, just like the rest of us that are not listened to by this council. Thank you.
Thank you. Now for the next question. In the past 2.5 years, Raleigh density, growth, rezoning, traffic, housing affordability, and changes to community engagement have been out of control. How would you confront this change to improve quality of life? And Christina, we'll start with you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat it one more time?
Sure.
I lost my balance.
In the past 2.5 years, Raleigh density, growth, rezoning, traffic, and housing affordability, and changes to community engagement have been out of control. How would you confront this change to improve quality of life?
All of that is so true. Everything that's happened in the last 3 years, rezonings have skyrocketed. We have no community engagement, so we don't know how people feel about it. It has to start with a conversation. It has to start with public engagement to where we say, what solutions do you want us to bring to the table? What I fear in Raleigh right now is we have 8 people on council who think that they make all the decisions, that they say something happens and they do it. They're there to represent us. And without talking to us and having these discussions, how do they know what we want? And those are those that will agree with you and those that don't agree with you. It's important to have all of those conversations so that you come to the best solution. It's terrifying to me looking at all the things all the people that are being kicked out of their homes, and it's where big issues like Downtown South and Dix Park and the consideration of who we're pushing out in that area. Those are the conversations that are missing right now from council, and I want to help bring those back so that we can make sure that all Raleigh residents have access to everything we have to offer.
Thank you. Everything I look at is what is better for the quality of life of our citizens of Raleigh. So I don't think sprawl is the best thing for our citizens in Raleigh. So with everything it goes against, it causes climate change, traffic congestion, makes our roads less safe, our pedestrians less safe. And so I focus on what is the best way for us to grow. Walkable communities, those that are being built and ones that are already there. That's neighborhoods. That is slowing the traffic down. Connectivity, so people don't have to drive everywhere. They can ride their bike. They can walk, both in neighborhoods that exist and also ones that are coming. We can't stop people from coming here. We are very attractive, and we are on all the top lists. And so what we have to do is figure out a way to manage growth, not stop it. Growth is good, but it needs to be sustainable, and that's what we're trying to do here. Because if it's not sustainable, we're not growing, we're going to be dying, and we do not want to do that as a city. Thank you.
Thank you. And another community involvement question, and we'll start with David. What is your position on community involvement in residential zoning, building condos in a residential setting with single-family houses?
Oh, man, is that something we haven't talked about yet? So I think we're getting to the missing middle issue, which is great. I don't think we have enough time on any of these issues tonight, so I'm glad we're coming back to a few of them. Read it one more time, the details, because, sorry.
What is your position on community involvement in residential zoning, building condos in a residential setting with single-family houses?
So, supportive of the current way we do things, except in the missing middle text changes. I have asked staff more than once that we do need to have notification for the neighbors around what may happen. And also to require a neighborhood meeting with the property owner or developer or whoever it is before they get too far down the road. And it was a great addition, I think, from staff said we need to have a city planning staff in those meetings. So they're supposed to be coming back to us with that. That'll be a great addition. While I, again, support the missing middle concept in general, not necessarily the transit overlay piece of it, but the other piece, I don't think it works in every situation. So I think this is part of making sure that the voices that should be heard are heard, not CACs, not livable Raleigh, but the neighbors that could be impacted by it who live close by. Thank you.
Christina, do you want me to repeat the question?
Please, thank you.
Yes. What is your position on community involvement in residential zoning, building condos in a residential setting with single-family houses?
The community involvement is nothing now. Right now, the way that the rules are is you have 500 feet. Any rezoning, all they have to alert is 500 feet around. What he's describing is what CACs were. CACs met once a month, and when we had a rezoning case, they came twice, and we had city staff there. We had planning staff there. So everything he's wanting to recreate is what he got rid of in the first place. We need to be there. We need to be at the table.
Please withhold your applause. Please.
We need to be at the table just like we were before. You can't defund it and then come back and say, I want to bring back all the pieces of it, but just not call it CACs. That's what we did, and it made everyone's voice in the area matter. We've gone down to 500 feet, and that is not adequate enough for all the residents who are impacted by rezonings. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is affordable housing and a wage gap. Considering it will be years before the supply and demand is where it needs to be, would you support renters' assistance to assist renters of housing for lower income residents? Considering it will be years before the supply and demand is where it needs to be, would you support renters' assistance for housing for lower income residents? Go ahead.
I would definitely like to learn more about it. I'm not sure that I'm well educated on renter's assistance, so before I say yes or no to that, I would definitely want to have that conversation. But as we look to this, my nephew works in the Parks Department, and a year ago he got paid $8.25 an hour. Now it's been bumped up to $13, which still isn't enough. I think on the city side, we can look towards raising our minimum wage so that it's reflected in the people who work for our city, who make our city great, can live and work in the area. So I would definitely be for raising our city workers' pay more so that we can provide the services to residents that they deserve. Thank you.
We were trying to work on this issue, I would say, through the affordable housing bond. We do have a homeowners assistance program in place for the city. A renters program, I don't think we have it. It's a totally different issue with renters. But what the way we're trying to go about it is like with Grosvenor Square is controlling these areas and allowing naturally occurring affordable housing to continue to occur both with homeowners but also with renters. But it's a tough one for the government to get involved in on this issue. So we need help at the state level and the federal level on this in trying to help these issues, trying to help this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, we'll go back down the line, David, and then Christina. How do you plan to communicate with and interact with your constituents? Will you be willing and able to respond to citizens' concerns in District E?
Given COVID, obviously, I guess you mean in not necessarily in person, but until recently. So I've done that my whole time on city council. Was I as fast as I would like to be given COVID? Probably not. But again, I told you about the kind of community engagement I did personally as a counselor. And I try to return every email, text, phone call, meet many people for coffee if I can. Do I get them all, catch them all? Probably not, but personally I do everything I can to be responsive to that need. Thank you.
Christina?
One more time, yes.
Sure.
Thanks.
How do you plan to communicate with and interact with your constituents? Will you be willing and able to respond to citizens' concerns in District E?
I would start with town halls. I want to do those monthly. I want to be there to have those conversations. I want to meet you where you are and come to your job and have that coffee where you are. Because by asking every resident to come to city council, it's not always a convenient time. 7 o'clock on a Tuesday or 1 o'clock on a Tuesday to come and talk isn't convenient for the working class and the working families. I have made it my priority, so I have been there and still haven't heard. So I would definitely use city council public comments to make sure that residents feel heard, that I respond to their concerns, and learn from their voices. So I would start with town halls, and I would make sure that anybody coming, making the trip out to city council to tell me something, knows that I heard them by responding.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Christina. Apparently, the housing bond funds have not been distributed to the agencies who were approved to provide housing and shelter for residents in need. Is there oversight for that distribution?
I mean, I'm going to speak out of turn because I'm not sitting on city council, but I don't think that there is oversight. I mean, David would be better to respond and let me know with that. That would be very disheartening to learn. I would definitely want to learn more about that to see how the funds are being distributed for the housing bond and make a transparent effort to include the residents in knowing what's happening with the dollars that they are spending on a bond.
I have to ask you to repeat that, sorry.
Apparently, the housing bond funds have not been distributed to the agencies who were approved to provide housing and shelter for residents in need. Is there oversight for that distribution?
I don't know how to answer it because I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, it says apparently. I'm not sure where they're getting this from, but it does have oversight. I believe it even has oversight at the state level because bonds you have to go out with is a state coordinated requirement. So of course there's oversight. It's very public. Go look up on the Raleigh's website to see the status of where the funding goes for the different buckets of the affordable housing bond. It's very transparent, very clear. Are they on schedule? I don't know that specifically, but there is oversight for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Considering the Wake County landfill will be full in 2040, what are your plans to reduce the city of Raleigh's trash? And we'll start with David.
We've already talked about this a little bit. I haven't heard that, if that's true. I know that we work with other municipalities as well as Wake County on our disposal. So I would sort of find it hard to believe that it was that soon that it was going to run out, but I would have to check into that too. So I think it's all the things that we've talked about in trying to reduce the solid waste. And I think our department has been doing a good job to make it easier for people to recycle, to get rid of their yard waste. But that's an ongoing issue as we grow to try to manage that. Thanks.
Thank you.
I don't know if I have the exact answer to that. I think there's so many different things that we haven't even thought of yet. I know that if this is true, by 2040, what are we going to do with what we already have to make room? How can we work with companies, work with innovators to use our trash for something else? Reusing and, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Oh.
Was that? Oh, I'm sorry, it said stop. I'm so sorry. So how do we use it? How do we turn that into, you work with the transportation department and turn it into streets? How do we do that? How do we use and recycle the trash that we already have? Maybe there are innovative ways that we haven't come up with, that we haven't even discussed yet. So I want to open the doors to those conversations with the companies that are doing the groundwork, that are having those new ideas. Because I don't want to have a bunch of trash here in 2040 that we can't do anything with. So how can we figure out what to use with it?
Thank you. Continuing on the subject of trash, and we'll start Christina, then David. 24% of trash going to the landfill is food waste, but there's no easy, affordable way for many Raleigh residents to compost that waste. Would you support a public compost drop-off like the Wake County Convenience Center and Cary Citizen Center?
Yes, at my house we compost, and it has severely reduced our use of the food trash in our trash cans. So I would seriously support doing some kind of drop-off, and with the end goal of one day maybe we'll have a compost pickup, just like we have recycling and just like we have trash. That's not going to happen tomorrow. That's not going to be there, but I would want to push towards that. How do we make it easier for the public to do things that are going to help and benefit the environment, such as composting, such as recycling? Let's make it easier for them. And there are a bunch of different experts that I would definitely sit down and rely on to say, how do we do that? How do we bring the public into our journey to becoming a more and better for climate change and ending that in the next few years, well, next 30 years?
So my family also compost, and it's a great thing, and everybody should do it. And the city of Raleigh is moving forward through the solid waste department to allow it to be easier for people to compost and then give their the compost to the city to get rid of in a compost pile. So that's happening. It's moving forward, and I hope we will be hearing something about that in the near future.
Thank you. And this was an online question, and we'll start with David. How do you deal with gentrification that leads to sprawl? Oops.
Well, again, I talked about how I look at growth. It is, I want to do everything to, if not prevent, slow down sprawl. So I would like us to do less approving of big detached single-family housing outside of 540, for example. That is not a good way to grow. You've got to have mixed use, especially if you're moving away from the city center. We need to have more walkability, connectivity, and ways to get around, not in your car, and have all the needs that you have, grocery stores, retail, et cetera, closer to you. So that reduces the price of everything, right? Including housing. And so that's something we need to continue to work hard on. And with our planning department, the experts and the stakeholders, we are trying to do that and focusing on that. And I, for one, am specifically, especially working on that. Thank you.
What we're doing now as a city is what's leading to sprawl. We're kicking out and we're pushing out the residents who have lived here because of rising property taxes. We're not paying attention to that. We're not approving rezonings that include varying levels of income in their design. So by that, you are creating the sprawl that you are against. So how are we going to do it? We have to work with developers. We have to work with the new, what's coming out. We have to say multiple varying levels of incomes need to be included in all of our growth. When we grow, when the city grows, we have to grow together, and that includes those of us making 30, 50, 80% AMI. If we don't begin to include those in every decision we make, then we are creating the sprawl that we so much object to.
Thank you. We have a last question, and it's a great one. So, what gives you hope for Raleigh's future? Christina, do you want to start?
Sure. There's so much to love about Raleigh. My children are here, they've grown up here, and from our park system to what we work on at the Parks Board, and I'm in the Sustainability, Wildlife, and Urban Trees Committee, and we just became designated as a biophilic city, which means that we include nature in our design. All of that gives me hope. It gives me hope that my girls are going to know that we are trying our best to combat climate change. We are trying our best to keep the residents here who help make our city great. And we want to grow with whatever is to come, but we want to grow together. So I think we can do it. We are an amazing city. We are the capital city, so we need to lead on all of these issues. We need to set the trail and blaze a trail for others to follow. So there's so much potential for us moving forward, and I want to be there to help capture that. I want to be there to make sure your voice is included in that growth. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you guys on November 8th. Vote, vote, vote.
I think with a lot of the things that we've talked about tonight and that I talked about in my introduction, what we already have here to enhance that and even make it better, those amenities. But also, we have got to figure out a way to help all of the people, not just a select few in the city, be heard and be part of the conversation, and we've got to move forward together. And I was so impressed by the citizens of Raleigh coming out of COVID, the resilience of all of you all, and the way we all work together to do it. We've got to look at all these issues comprehensively, holistically. We have a climate action plan. We got to make it work and keep moving together on that. We got to work together. We got to stop tearing each other down or letting special interests tear each other down or divide us. No more of that. And they need to get out of the way and let y'all directly deal with us and deal with city staff and deal with the stakeholders. I believe in science. I believe in experts. Let's be led by that and not be led by opinion doesn't know what it's talking about or is just opinion. So I have great hope for the future because of all of you all. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we are going to have closing statements. Closing statements are 1 minute. And David, we'll go back down. Go ahead.
I appreciate everybody coming out today, even if you disagree with me on individual issues. And I really appreciate those of you watching at home or wherever you are and those that will be watching in the future. I really want to thank the organizations that put this on. Y'all are the lifeblood of Raleigh. Y'all are doing the Lord's work. Y'all are the true partners with Raleigh. You work with us, not against us. Y'all are trying to build a better Raleigh for everybody. This is great, open, transparent democracy. You get to compare us. Do so. Look at our websites. Go right now and look at them. Look at our records. Look at our backgrounds. Look at our successes. Look at those individuals and organizations that support us and endorse us. Compare those. I think it'll be telling. To sum up, I'm an independent, pragmatic, moderate. I'm pro-public safety, pro-affordable housing, pro-true community engagement, pro-parks, and most of all, pro-Raleigh. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Christina?
Thank you all for being here and coming to hear our positions and our views on the future of Raleigh. I want to be the difference of what we've experienced from the last 3 years. I want to be there to listen to your voice. I want to give you a platform to speak your mind, because through conversation, through community engagement, true community engagement that includes all parties, that includes multiple dimensions, that's how we come to the best solutions for our city. I want us to work together, and that means developers, that means city staff, that means residents, and I want us to have those deep conversations to develop what we think Raleigh looks like in the future. Thank you so much for being here, and again, come out November 8th, vote, vote, vote. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. And now I want to thank everyone in the audience for attending. You can give yourselves a big round of applause now and for yourselves and the candidates. Thank you. I also want to thank Clouds Brewing and all the partners for hosting. Yay, Clouds Brewing. Thank you to the candidates for putting yourselves out there and serving the citizens of Raleigh. Just a few closing reminders. Please check your voter registration and ensure that it is accurate and up to date. Again, as noted earlier, early voting runs from October to November 5th, with Election Day on November 8th. You can contact the candidates after the forum, and we have a few minutes if you want to speak with them. You can also find election and candidate information, including what races and candidates will appear on your individual ballot, by visiting the website vote411.org, and it is a League of Women Voters website, so I'm going to give a little plug. Also, and lastly, please drive safely, stay well, and enjoy the rest of your evening. We look forward to seeing you at the next event. Thank you so much.